we will be standing by there with them. Today, we don't have those allies in that region that can assist us if that situation that you talked about were to become a reality.
Senator Santorum, if the security situation were to fall apart in Iraq in 2012, would you support sending U.S. troops back to the region to stabilize the gains made?
I'm not for taking them out of the region. I believe that we need to listen to our generals, and our generals are very, very clear that we need to continue to stabilize the Iraqi government wants and needs our intelligence in particular, needs force protection. We need to have anywhere, I'm hearing numbers of 20, 30,000 troops potentially to remain in Iraq, not indefinitely, but to continue to make sure that this is a stable transition. This is the difference between Congressman Paul, Governor Huntsman, Governor Perry, and myself when it comes to this issue. I stand up and say that when we engage in Iraq and Afghanistan, we engage because we want to be successful. We want victory. We want to have accomplished a national security objective for this country, to make sure that we are safer. We're not on a political agenda to withdraw troops. So the first thing is to make sure that we secure success. To answer the question on Pakistan, which I'm not too sure was answered, the bottom line is that we should be establishing relationships in Pakistan with allies of ours, folks like relationships with President Musharraf, who we had in the past, with others in that country. So if in fact something like that would occur, we could work in concert to make sure that coup could be overturned and make sure that those nuclear weapons do not fall into those hands. But working with allies at that point is the last thing we want to do. We want to work in that country to make sure that the problem is diffused.
Speaker Gingrich, many of the foreign policy questions we received had directly to do with the U.S. economy as well when it came to the topic of foreign aid. Butch Russell had the top voted video question in the section of foreign policy.
When are we going to get someone in the White House that can stand up to these other countries and say, you're not getting any more of our money? This is stupid. We send billions of dollars overseas to countries that hate us.
Speaker Gingrich.
I actually think there's a lot to that, and I've been a strong supporter of international assistance, but I think there are a couple of good reasons to review the whole program. First of all, I'd replace virtually all government-to-government aid with some kind of investment approach that encouraged American companies to create jobs that made both the United States and the other country wealthier. Our bureaucrats giving their bureaucrats money is a guaranteed step towards corruption. Second, I think when you have countries that vote against you in the United Nations consistently, you really have to ask yourself, why are you giving them anything? I mean, if they're not your ally, why are you have a... We came out of World War II with the generosity that made perfect sense when we had 50% of the world economy. And it was a different world. And we need to understand how different it is. But I want to go back to your question on Pakistan, because I think people need to understand how real this is. This world is in danger of becoming dramatically more dangerous in the not-too-distant future. People talk about an Iranian weapon. There may be well over 100 nuclear weapons in Pakistan, and the example you used is not too far-fetched to worry about.
Speaker Gingrich, thank you. Governor Johnson, here in Florida, charter flights from Fort Lauderdale to Havana, Cuba have resumed. Is there a problem with that? And what are your thoughts on U.S.-Cuba policy?
I think the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we're bankrupt. So I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013, and included in that is a 43% reduction in military spending. I think it's crazy that we have foreign aid to countries when we're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar to do that. Military alliances are really key to other countries taking up the slack. With regard to flights to Cuba, I'm in favor, I think, of the whole notion that trade promotes friendship as opposed to not. So I would be inclined to looking at establishing or supporting those kinds of flights.
Governor Johnson, thank you.
Excuse me, Brett. Could I weigh in on this?
Congresswoman Bachmann.
I'd like to weigh in on this because according to the State Department's website, there are 4 nations that are state sponsors of terror. Cuba is one of those nations. We would never have flights between the United States and Cuba. It's a state sponsor of terror.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Now to my colleague, Megyn Kelly, on the topic of social issues.
Governor Huntsman.
Just one issue. I just want to respond to my friend Rick Santorum here. Is the microphone working?
It is.
Thank you. We do have a difference of opinion here in terms of overall foreign policy. And I think, as the only one on stage with any hands-on foreign policy experience, having lived overseas 4 different times, we're at a critical juncture in our country. We don't have a foreign policy, and we don't project the goodness of this country in terms of liberty, democracy, open markets, and human rights with the weak core. And right now in this country, our core, our economy is broken. And we don't shine that light today. We're 25% of the world's GDP. The world is a better place when the United States is strong. So guiding anything that we talk about from a foreign policy standpoint needs to be fixing our core. But second of all, I believe that after 10 years of fighting the war on terror, people are ready to bring our troops home from Afghanistan, Rick. They're ready to bring our troops home. This country has given its all.
Governor Huntsman.
What remains behind, some element to collect intelligence, special forces capability, and we're going to have to do that in every corner of the world. But we need to fix this core and get serious about what the rest of the 21st century holds for this country.
Senator Santorum, very quickly.
Just because our economy is sick does not mean our country is sick, and doesn't mean our values are sick. And we're going to stand up for those values every opportunity to do so to make sure that our country is safe. The bottom line is that you just mentioned is we should be fighting wars to win, not fighting wars for politics. And this president is fighting a war in Afghanistan with one hand tied behind our generals, not giving the troops they need, not giving the authority, the rules of engagement to allow us to be successful. And unless we change those rules of engagement and make sure that our folks can win, then we are going to play politics with our military.
This may not come as a huge revelation. We've been talking about Pakistan here, but at the end of the day, folks, only Pakistan can save Pakistan. Only Afghanistan can save Afghanistan. Yeah. All that I want right now at this point in history is for America to save America. We've got to fix our core and get it right.
Thank you very much. Now, as I originally said, Megyn Kelly on social issues.
And now I'm moving on from you, Governor Huntsman, to you, Congresswoman Bachmann. In 2006, you said that public schools are, quote, teaching children that there is separation of church and state, and said, quote, I am here to tell you that's a myth. Do you believe that there is a limit on government's ability to inject religion into the public square, and if so, what is that limit?
Well, I think that Thomas Jefferson stated it best. He was the author of the religious liberty that he valued so much, and that's that the United States government should not be a state church. That's really what the fundamental was of separation of church and state. And when Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptists wanted to know, will you have a national church in the United States? He said no, because we believe in freedom of conscience. We believe in freedom of religious liberty and expression and speech. That's a foundational principle in the United States. But that doesn't mean that we aren't people of faith, and that people of faith shouldn't be allowed to exercise religious liberty in the public square. Of course we should be able to exercise our faith. And whether that expression occurs in a public school or occurs in a public building, we should be able to allow to have freedom for all people to express our belief in God.
Senator Santorum, this question stirred up a whole lot of controversy online. It comes from Stephen Hill, who is a soldier serving in Iraq.
In 2010, when I was deployed to Iraq, I had to lie about who I was because I'm a gay soldier, and I didn't want to lose my job. My question is, under one of your presidencies, do you intend to circumvent the progress that's been made for gay and lesbian soldiers in the military?
Yeah, I would say any type of sexual activity has absolutely no place in the military, and the fact that they're making a point to include it as a provision within the military that we are going to recognize a group of people and give them a special privilege in removing don't ask, don't tell, I think tries to inject social policy into the military, and the military's job is to do one thing, and that is to defend our country. We need to give the military, which is all volunteer, the ability to do so in a way that is most efficient in protecting our men and women in uniform, and I believe this undermines that ability.
So what would you do with soldiers like Stephen Hill? I mean, he's out. You saw his face on camera. When he first submitted this video to us, it was without his face on camera. Now he's out. So what would you do as president? I think
look, what we're doing is playing social experimentation with our military right now, and that's tragic. I would just say that going forward, we would reinstitute that policy if Rick Santorum was president. Period. That policy would be reinstituted, and as far as people who are in it, I would not throw them out because that would be unfair to them because of the policy of this administration. But we would move forward in conformity with what was happening in the past, which was sex is not an issue. It should not be an issue. Leave it alone. Keep it to yourself, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual.
Congressman Paul, you have said that you believe that life begins at conception and that abortion ends an innocent life. If you believe that, how can you support a rape exception to abortion bans? And how can you support the morning after pill? Aren't those lives just as innocent?
They may be, but the way this is taken care of in our country, it is not a national issue. This is a state issue. And there are circumstances where doctors in the past have used certain day after pills for somebody with rape. And quite frankly, if somebody is treated, you don't even know if a person is pregnant. You don't even know if there's a disease. But if it's 24 hours after rape, I don't know how you're going to police it. So I don't think you should create. We have too many laws already. Now, how are you going to police the day after pill? It doesn't make any sense to me in a practical matter. So I would say that nobody can outdo me on respect for life. I've spent a lifetime dealing with life, but I still think there is a time where the law doesn't solve the problems. Only the moral character of the people will eventually solve this problem, not the law.
Governor Perry, you and our former president, George W. Bush, have a lot in common. You're both Republicans from Texas. You both ran on the same ticket for the State House. You both share a deep religious faith. Now, you've made a point of saying, well, we went to different colleges, Texas A&M and Yale, and point out that you have a different approach from President Bush when it comes to government spending. But what are the other differences that you can cite between you and President Bush, and what say you about these reports that there is some bad blood between the two of you?
Well, let me address the last issue first, and we got a great rapport. I talk to the president from time to time, call him on his birthday, wish him happy birthday, talk to him on a relatively regular basis. I highly respect the president and his public service. What we have in difference is probably as much as in style as in substance on various issues. For instance, I was very vocal in my disagreement with him on Medicaid Part D, that the federal government should be involved in that very expensive program. And I was also vocal against No Child Left Behind. It gets back to the federal government has no business telling the states how to educate our children.
Thank you, Megan. We've been showing you these word clouds throughout the night. Take a look at this one. All of the questions on health care. You can see the big word there, Obamacare. Chris has the questions on health care.
And we'll get right to that question of Obamacare. Mr. Cain, you are a survivor of stage 4 colon and liver cancer. And you say if Obamacare had been we all share in the happiness about your situation, but you say if Obamacare had been in effect when you were first being treated, you'd be dead now. Why?
The reason I said that I would be dead under Obamacare is because my cancer was detected in March of 2006. And from March of 2006 all the way to the end of 2006, for that number of months, I was able to get the necessary CAT scan tests,